Hello everyone. Today I want to present Position Analyst, and it's basically using the tracking data from last year's Premier League provided by SkillCorner, where you have the locations of the players at, I think, 10 frames per second. So just as a reminder, my project was about inferring individual players' positions, where for each team, the outfield players, I just fit a 5x5 grid, dividing it with, let's say, equal columns, but the weights for the rows are basically chosen based on the ones you see on the screen. And as a result, we end up with 25 possibilities for the players, depending on in which cell they end up with. So what we can do, we can pick a match, and then we pick a player, and then for each frame for this player, we have 25 possibilities. So we can just in the end of the match go over all the frames and report what percentage of the match time this player spent in any of these tactical positions that we are inferring. For example, in this case, for Mohamed Salah, we inferred around 40% of the in-play time he was in the RF right front position. And then we can compare this with the label that we have in the SkillCorner. And we can also use phases of play to have the division. So in play time, but also when the team had the position and when the team didn't have the position, we can build these visualizations, which we call position maps. So based on these position maps, we come up with some KPIs, and these KPIs are defined per phase. So there are 3 KPIs: versatility, the vertical center of gravity, and the horizontal center of gravity. So in the end, we have 6 KPIs because we have 3 for in position and 3 for out of position. And just the definition is simply like for the versatility, that just measures how broadly a player occupies different zones that you see on that 5x5 grid. And then these are the thresholds that we are using for the Z value and how it interprets into the text. So if the Z value is above 0.5, we say that the player is appearing in a lot of different positions. And if it's less than minus 0.5, we say that the player has a really specialization and focuses on one specific position. The vertical center of gravity just measures how up and down on the 5x5 grid a player is. And similarly, we have the Z values and the thresholds that we are using to just explain whether the player is playing high or deeper in that 5x5 grid. And also for the lateral, let's say, orientation, that just measures whether the player is leaning towards the right or left. And the Z values that we are using and the thresholds basically tell us that whether that orientation is really strongly to the right, maybe has a preference to go to the right, or the same for the left when it's a negative value. So for the demo, apart from Mohamed Salah, I have also chosen 2 other players that we want to just see how in the chatbot it looks like when you want to ask it about these players and focusing on their positional behavior. And this is just a demo I prepared. So you select a player, maybe I can stop, and then you end up with the first text that is coming from the, let's say, the wordalization, where you have the distribution plot for all these 6 KPIs. And the first row is just the average of those KPIs, where you have the average Z score. And then you can just compare this player to all the other players when basically based on the main position, the right wing. So you're comparing all the right wingers together in the Premier League. And the text here, we can just see what we get from the text. So when you go to the text, you have like he's a right winger. And when it comes to the, let's say, interpretation of with the versatility, because his Z score is negative, so you can see for in position versatility and also out of position, he is, let's say, the extreme to the negative. So that's why the text has interpreted that he really specializes in one specific cell or tactical position, and is not really the versatile player that you maybe expect from other wingers. And he's playing higher up because of the center of gravity and has a tendency to play on the right. So it's a very short, I would say, just 3 lines that you get from this text. But then what we can do, like one of the other functionalities we have in the chatbot, is to ask who is similar to him. And the similarity is just coming from the same distribution plot and looks for the players who on average are close to Mohamed Salah. And then it just basically returns the results as a text. But I think the text is not really the strongest part. It's just the text it generates that these 3 players are closest, and then you can see it in the visualization with the annotations. And in this case, we had Saka, Johnson, and Mbumbo to be reported to be closest to Mohamed Salah. They are not closest on, let's say, when you are looking for individual KPIs, but on average, they are the closest three to this player. And then another functionality is to ask who is completely on the opposite side, which is just, I would say, looking for the other direction in the distribution plot to report players who are just showing completely different behavior than Mohamed Salah. So this is like say one of the functionalities similar or dissimilar players. And another functionality, we will just choose another player, Bruno Fernandes. And the same, we get the text. I will just interpret the text first, and then we can see what other functionalities we have. So here we see that he's the left midfielder that's coming from the, let's say, SkillCorner label across 12 matches. Because his Z score on the out of position versatility and in position versatility is really high, that has been interpreted to be a player who is appearing in a broad range of tactical positions. So when the Manchester United had the ball, and when the Manchester United didn't have the ball. And what else we can ask is that just return all the, let's say, position maps, those 5x5 grids. And this is just returning the, let's say, the pictures where you can go over all the matches and compare his probability, let's say, the probability of different positions he was occupying. Another player that I found interesting was Gusto from Chelsea, the right back. You can see that he showed a very high versatility in position and out of position. But when it comes to the lateral center of gravity, he is really to the left. So he's a right back who has a really tendency to play to the left compared to other right backs. And maybe you can interpret that he's, let's say, a right back who plays as an inverted right back. And yeah, you can also see that in the text that in position, he moved across a broad range of positions because of the high versatility, and also he has a tendency to play to the left. One functionality that I found interesting is that instead of returning all the position maps, we just ask in which matches he showed a different profile to his, let's say, average appearance. And that's like the prompt that you can just ask the query in which matches he showed a different profile. And you can just get, let's say, up to 3 matches in this case. That's the default that it returns. And you can see that in these 3 matches, he was in all of them reported to be a right back. But when you look at his 5x5 grid in position, that is the main reason that this profile stood out as an outlier. And maybe that's not a typical profile from a right back when it comes to in position behavior. Yeah, that's the end of the demo, and I just maybe go to the next slide. Just wanted to mention that this, let's say, idea to work on this presentation was coming from a hackathon I participated in February by SkillCorner. And in that hackathon, in the future work, I mentioned that it would be great to work on the possibility of large language models to come up with some queries like find me a left back who inverts. And for that, you needed to have access to the full season, let's say, tracking data. And taking this course made it possible to explore that idea. And yeah, I'm really delighted for that opportunity. And thanks for your attention.